Richard trailed off meaningfully. Why didn't you tell me this before? I tried to call you several times, but your phone was off. Then I thought it would be better to tell you in person. He pulled up another screen. There's more. Jennifer's name was on Robert's life insurance policy as a beneficiary. She filed a claim the day after he died before the funeral even happened. The insurance company called me as a reference, which is how I found out. I felt sick. Actually, physically sick. The day after Robert died, before his body was even cold, before they'd even bothered to check on me. The insurance company denied the claim when they realized she wasn't actually listed as the beneficiary anymore. You changed that designation 6 months ago, remember? You made it payable to you as surviving spouse. I did remember. Robert and I had updated all our beneficiaries when we updated our wills 2 years ago. It had been routine paperwork, meaningless at the time. Now it felt like Robert had been protecting me even then, somehow knowing I'd need that protection. What do I need to do? I asked, my voice shaking. First, we're going to add additional security to all your accounts. Verbal password, additional verification for any large transactions, daily alerts sent to your email and phone. No one will be able to access your money without you knowing about it. Good. Yes, do that. Second, I'm going to document everything we've discussed today. If David and Jennifer do try to pursue a competency claim, this will show that you came in proactively, that you understood the situation, and that you took appropriate action to protect yourself. He paused, then added gently, Margaret, I have to ask, are you safe? Are they threatening you? Threatening my peace of mind? Yes. Threatening me physically? No. They're just. I struggled to find the words. They're desperate. They expected to inherit everything, and now they're not getting anything, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to change that. Richard nodded slowly. I've been in banking a long time. I've seen this before. Money makes people do terrible things, especially when they feel entitled to it. He leaned forward. But Margaret, you need to understand what David attempted. If we can prove it was him, that's wire fraud. That's a federal crime. And what they're doing now? Trying to claim incompetency to gain control of your assets? That's financial elder abuse. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. My children weren't just greedy, they were criminals, or trying to be. I don't want to press charges, I said immediately. I just want them to leave me alone. I understand, but you should document everything. Keep records of every interaction, every threat, every attempt to manipulate or intimidate you. Not because you necessarily want to prosecute, but because you might need to protect yourself. We spent the next hour going through every account, every asset, every possible vulnerability. Robert's pension survivor benefits secure, paid directly to me. The house in my name only, had been since Robert's death. The savings account now locked down with multiple security layers. The life insurance already paid out to me, safely deposited. You're in good shape, Richard finally said. Everything's protected, but Margaret, there's one more thing. He pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. Inside was a brochure for something called a durable power of attorney. If something happens to you, a stroke, an accident, anything that leaves you temporarily unable to manage your affairs, you need someone you trust to have power of attorney. Right now, if you were incapacitated, the court would likely appoint David or Jennifer as your guardian. They'd control everything. The thought made my blood run cold. I recommend you appoint someone else. Tyler, maybe? Or even me, I can serve as a professional fiduciary if you don't have family you trust. Tyler, I said without hesitation. I trust Tyler. Can we do that today? We can start the paperwork. You'll need to have it notarized and witnessed, but yes, we can get it done. By the time I left the bank 2 hours later, I had new passwords, new security measures, new documentation, and an appointment scheduled for the next day to finalize the power of attorney. I also had a new understanding of just how far David and Jennifer were willing to go. I sat in my car in the parking lot, unable to drive yet, my hands still shaking, attempted wire fraud, filing false insurance claims, trying to have me declared incompetent. These weren't the actions of grieving children who felt hurt by their mother's decision. These were the actions of criminals who'd been caught and were now trying to steal what they felt they were owed. My phone rang. Tyler. Hey, Grandma. Just checking in. How are you doing? I almost broke down right there. His voice, so warm and genuine, such a stark contrast to everything I'd just learned. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Actually, I need to talk to you about something. Can you come over tonight?" "Of course. Is everything all right?" "You sound upset. I'll explain when you get here." "And Tyler? Thank you. For being you. For being someone I can trust." There was a pause then. "Always, Grandma. Always." After we hung up, I sat there for another few minutes, watching people go in and out of the bank. Normal people doing normal banking. Depositing checks, applying for loans, opening accounts for their children. Had David and Jennifer ever been normal? Or had I just been blind to who they really were? I thought about the attempted wire transfer. $50,000, stolen while I was sitting at home grieving, while Robert's body was barely cold. I thought about Jennifer filing the insurance claim, so certain she was entitled to money from her father's death that she'd moved on it immediately. And I thought about Robert's unsent letters, about his desperate hope that they might change, might become the children he'd raised them to be. He'd known they wouldn't. He'd known, and he'd tried to protect me anyway. "I see them now, Robert," I whispered to the empty car. "I finally see them for who they are, and I'm not going to let them win." I started the car and drove home through the gray Portland afternoon. When I got there, Tyler's Honda was already in the driveway. He was sitting on the porch steps, waiting for me. "You sounded worried on the phone," he said as I got out. "What happened?" I looked at this young man, this good, honest, trustworthy young man, and I felt something shift inside me. Not just gratitude, not just relief, but hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the next generation would be better than the last. "Come inside," I said. "We have a lot to talk about, and then I'm going to teach you your grandfather's pot roast recipe. Because family recipes should go to family who deserves them." He smiled and followed me into the house, into Robert's house, which would one day be his house, where real love still lived. And that, I thought, was what inheritance really meant. Saturday morning came with unexpected sunshine, rare for November in Portland. Tyler and Ethan were coming over for dinner that evening, and I'd promised to teach them Robert's pot roast recipe. But first, I needed to get out of the house. The walls were closing in, filled with too many memories and too many recent confrontations. I drove to Stumptown Coffee on Belmont, the place Robert and I used to go every Saturday morning for years. Our ritual: 2 cappuccinos, 1 apple fritter to split, and the newspaper spread between us at a corner table. We'd stopped going about a year ago when Robert's health started failing, when getting dressed and out the door became too exhausting for him. If this part really struck a chord with you, tap that like button to let me know you're with me. Do you see yourself in the character's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear your take. Walking in felt like stepping back in time. The same smell of fresh ground coffee, the same indie music playing, the same eclectic mix of students and artists and old-timers like me. I ordered Robert's usual cappuccino and an apple fritter, then found myself standing there holding the bag, realizing I had no one to share it with. "You can sit here if you want," a voice said. I turned to see a woman about my age, maybe a few years younger, sitting alone at a 2-person table by the window. She had short silver hair and kind eyes behind stylish glasses. I hate seeing people stand around looking lost. I've been there. "Thank you," I said, surprised by her directness. It was very Portland, that casual friendliness with strangers. I sat down across from her, and she smiled. "I'm Sarah Martinez." "Margaret Chen." We shook hands across the table. "Chen," she repeated. "Are you related to Robert Chen, the gentleman who used to come in here every Saturday?" My throat tightened. He was my husband. Her face fell. "Oh, honey, I heard he passed. I'm so sorry. He was always so kind. Always had a smile. Used to tell the baristas jokes that weren't very funny, but we all laughed anyway because he was so earnest." I laughed despite myself. "That sounds like Robert." "You're here alone," she observed gently. "My children didn't come to his funeral." The words spilled out before I could stop them. "I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm telling you this." "Because sometimes it's easier to talk to strangers," Sarah said. "And because I understand. My husband died 2 years ago, cancer. We had 3 children. Not one of them showed up to the funeral." I stared at her. "Not one?" "Not one. Too busy," they said. "Work commitments. Family obligations. One was in Florida, one in New York, one right here in Portland. The one in Portland was the worst, only 30 minutes away, but he had his daughter's soccer game. I'm so sorry. Don't be. It taught me something important. It taught me who my real family was. She took a sip of her coffee. After Marcus died, after I buried him alone, I did something I should have done years earlier. I changed my will. Cut them all out. Every penny. That's what I did, I said quietly, 3 days ago. Everything goes to my grandson Tyler, the one who actually showed up. Sarah's face lit up. Good for you. Good for you for having the courage to do what's right instead of what's expected. We talked for over an hour. She told me about her children, how they'd taken her for granted, called only when they needed money, made promises they never kept. How she'd spent years making excuses for them until Marcus's death forced her to see the truth. The hardest part, she said, was admitting I'd failed as a mother, that somehow I'd raised children who valued money over people. That's not failure, I said. That's them making their own choices. We gave them love. We gave them everything. What they did with it, that's on them, not us. Took me 2 years to believe that, Sarah said. But you're right, we can't control who they become. We can only control how we respond to who they are. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos. This is what I did with my inheritance. I set up a scholarship fund. The Marcus and Sarah Martinez Scholarship for first-generation college students at Portland Community College. We give out 5 scholarships a year, $10,000 each. And every year I meet the recipients. I see their faces when they realize someone believes in them. That's what inheritance should be. Not enabling entitled children, but creating opportunities for people who'll actually appreciate them. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'm doing the same thing. The Robert Chen Memorial Scholarship, using his life insurance money. Sarah reached across and grabbed my hand. Then we're sisters in this. Sisters who chose love over obligation, who chose to honor our husbands in ways that matter. My children are fighting it, I admitted. They hired lawyers. They tried to freeze my bank accounts. My son even attempted to steal money from my account. Sarah's grip tightened. They'll try everything. Mine did too. Contested the will. Claimed I was incompetent. Even tried to get me committed for a psychiatric evaluation. But I had documentation. I had evidence. And I had the truth on my side. What happened? They lost. It took 8 months and cost them thousands in legal fees, but they lost. The judge actually scolded them in court. Said he'd never seen such a clear case of children motivated purely by greed. It's been 18 months since then, and I haven't heard from any of them. Does that make you sad? She thought about it. Sometimes. But mostly I feel relieved. I spent 60 years trying to earn their love, trying to be enough for them. Now I spend my time with people who actually appreciate me. Friends, neighbors, the scholarship recipients. It's a better life, Margaret. Lonelier in some ways, but more honest. We exchanged phone numbers before we left. Call me anytime, Sarah said, especially when you're doubting yourself, when they're making you feel guilty. I'll remind you why you're doing this. I will. Thank you. This meant more than you know. We have to stick together. Those of us who found the courage to say enough. There aren't many of us. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in days. Sarah had shown me the future, not the scary unknown I'd been dreading, but a real possibility, a life built on authentic relationships instead of obligatory ones. A legacy that actually meant something. When I got home, there was a car I didn't recognize in my driveway. My stomach clenched. Had David and Jennifer come back? But the woman who got out of the car wasn't Jennifer. She was older, maybe 60, with streaks of gray in her dark hair. She looked nervous. Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry to bother you. My name is Patricia. Patricia Morrison. I was David's second wife. I'd forgotten about Patricia. David had married her 5 years ago, divorced her 3 years later. I'd met her maybe twice. Patricia. Hello. Is everything all right? I needed to talk to you. About David. About what he's doing. She twisted her hands together. Can we talk? Just for a few minutes? I led her inside, made tea, and we sat at the kitchen table. I heard about the will, she said. David called me. He wanted me to testify that you'd always been confused, that you couldn't manage money, that you needed a guardian. He wanted me to lie for him in court. What did you say? I told him to go to hell. She laughed bitterly. Sorry for the language, but that's what I said, because I know who David really is. I lived with him for 3 years, and I saw how he treats people who can't give him what he wants. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. I brought you these. Documents from our divorce proceedings. Financial records showing how David hid assets, lied about income, tried to cheat me out of my fair share. I thought you should have them. In case he tries to claim he's some kind of honest businessman who would never do anything improper. I opened the folder. Page after page of evidence, bank statements, emails, depositions. David's character laid bare. Why are you helping me? I asked. Because you were always kind to me. The few times we met, you treated me like family. Like I mattered. David told me you were cold, that you'd never accepted me, but that was just another one of his lies. She wiped her eyes. And because I watched him treat his own mother like an ATM, if he could do that to you, he'd do it to anyone. Thank you, Patricia. This means a lot. There's one more thing. She hesitated. David's business? The one he's always talking about, the big success? It's failing. Has been for 2 years. He's maxed out his credit cards, behind on his mortgage, facing lawsuits from investors. That's why he's so desperate for your money. He's not just greedy, he's drowning. After she left, I sat with the folder, with Sarah's phone number in my pocket, with the knowledge that I wasn't alone in this fight. My phone rang. Tyler. Hey, Grandma. Ethan and I are on our way. We picked up flowers for the table, yellow roses, like Grandpa used to grow. Yellow roses, Robert's favorites. That's perfect, sweetheart. I'll see you soon. I looked around the kitchen at Robert's coffee mug, at the window where his roses used to bloom, at the table where we'd shared 54 years of meals and conversations and love. This was worth fighting for, not the house or the money, but what they represented: love, loyalty, showing up, being present. And I wasn't fighting alone anymore. Tyler and Ethan arrived at 5 o'clock sharp, arms full of groceries and flowers. The yellow roses went into Robert's favorite vase, the crystal one we'd received as a wedding gift from his aunt. I hadn't used it in years, afraid it might break. But tonight felt like the right time to bring it out. Okay, Grandma, Tyler said, rolling up his sleeves. Teach us everything. Ethan and I decided we're going to master Grandpa's pot roast and make it a tradition. Every third Sunday, Ethan added. We'll take turns hosting, keep Grandpa's memory alive. My eyes filled with tears, the good kind this time. He would have loved that. We worked together in the kitchen, and I showed them Robert's secret, a tablespoon of instant coffee in the braising liquid. It adds depth, I explained. Your grandfather learned it from his mother, who learned it from hers. It's been in this family for 4 generations. 5 now, Tyler said, writing it down in his phone notes. We're not going to forget. As the roast cooked, filling the house with the smell of home and memory, we sat at the kitchen table with wine. Real wine from the good bottles in Robert's collection, the ones he'd been saving for special occasions that never quite came. Well, this was special. This was family. Grandma, Ethan said carefully, I need to tell you something. Dad called me again yesterday. He's asking me to come to Portland to help talk sense into you. He said if I helped him, he'd pay off my student loans. How much are they? I asked. $32,000. But Grandma, I'm not. I would never. I know you wouldn't, sweetheart. But I want you to understand what your father just did. He tried to buy your loyalty against me. He tried to put a price tag on our relationship. Ethan's jaw clenched. That's exactly what he does. Everything's a transaction with him. I told him I wasn't coming, and he said, he stopped, looking uncomfortable. What did he say? He said I was making a mistake. That you were a bitter old woman who was being manipulated by Tyler, that I'd regret siding with the wrong people when the dust settled and I was left with nothing. Tyler put down his wine glass with a sharp click. He said that about my grandma? Worse, Ethan admitted. He said some really ugly things, about how she was senile and vindictive, about how she never really loved him, only judged him. He painted this whole picture of his childhood where nothing he did was ever good enough, where she was always critical and cold. I felt like I'd been slapped. Is that what he believes? That I never loved him? He's rewriting history, Tyler said firmly. Classic narcissist behavior. Make yourself the victim so you don't have to face what you've done. I have photos, I said quietly. Thousands of photos. Birthday parties, Christmases, Little League games, school plays. I was at everything. Robert was at everything. We supported them, praised them, loved them unconditionally. And now David's telling people I was cold? Ethan reached across and took my hand. Anyone who knows you knows that's a lie. But Grandma, you should be prepared. He's telling this story to everyone who'll listen, building a narrative for his legal case. Let him, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. I have evidence. He has lies. We'll see which one a judge believes. The timer went off, and we served the pot roast. It was perfect, tender, rich, exactly how Robert used to make it. We sat at the dining room table, the one that had held so many family meals over the years, and for the first time since Robert died, it didn't feel empty. Tell us about when you and Grandpa first met, Tyler said. Ethan hasn't heard that story. So I did. I told them about the dance at the community center in 1971, how Robert had stepped on my feet 3 times during the first song and apologized profusely each time. How he'd been so nervous he'd spilled punch on his shirt. How we'd talked until 3 in the morning about everything and nothing jazz music, his dreams of learning carpentry, my love of teaching children. He proposed after 6 months, I said. Everyone told us we were rushing, but he said when you know, you know. And he was right. 54 years. We never stopped knowing. That's what love should be, Ethan said softly. Not what my parents had, not what Dad has with anyone. Real partnership, real commitment. He married 3 times, Tyler told me. Did you know that? After Ethan's mom and Patricia, there was someone else. Lasted 11 months. She left him, too. Why? I asked. Same reason they all did, Ethan said. Eventually they realized everything was about him. His career, his needs, his wants. There was never room for anyone else. We were quiet for a moment. Then Tyler said, "Can I ask you something? Do you ever regret it? Changing the will? Cutting them out?" I thought about it, really thought about it. About David's angry face in my living room, about Jennifer's tears that weren't really about grief, about the lawyer's letters and the threats and the attempted theft. No, I said finally. I regret that it had to come to this. I regret that they became people who forced me to make this choice. But the choice itself? No. Because this, I gestured around the table, at the 2 of them, at the half-eaten pot roast and the yellow roses and the crystal vase. This is what family should be. Not obligation, not guilt, not transactions, just people who show up because they want to, because they love you. We do love you, Grandma, Tyler said. So much, Ethan added. After dinner, we did the dishes together, then moved to the living room. I showed them Robert's photo albums, the really old ones from before everything went digital. Pictures of me pregnant with David, of Robert holding his newborn son with such wonder on his face, pictures of Jennifer's first steps, her first day of school, Robert braiding her hair before a dance recital. They were so loved, I said, looking at a photo of 6-year-old David sitting on Robert's shoulders at the zoo. We gave them everything we had. Sometimes that's the problem, Ethan said. Sometimes when you give people everything, they learn to expect it instead of appreciate it. And when the giving stops or even slows down, they get angry. Not because they need it, but because they feel entitled to it. Is that what happened to you with your dad? I asked. Yeah. When I graduated college, I expected him to help me like he'd always helped me. But by then his second marriage was falling apart, and he was focused on that. So I had to figure things out on myself. And you know what? It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned I could stand on my own 2 feet. I learned that depending on Dad meant being disappointed. That's when Grandpa sent you the letter, I said. That's when Grandpa saved me, Ethan corrected. Not with the money, I never cashed that check, but with the letter. With believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. That's what I'll always remember. We talked until midnight, until I was yawning and they insisted I needed to rest. At the door, they both hugged me long, tight, real hugs. Thank you for today, I said. For being here, for learning the pot roast, for being the kind of men your grandfather would be proud of. We learned from the best, Tyler said. After they left, I walked through the quiet house, turning off lights. I stopped in Robert's study and sat in his chair one more time. They came. Robert, I whispered to the darkness. Real family came, not because they had to, because they wanted to, because they loved us. You would have been so happy. I could almost hear his voice. I am happy, Maggie. You're finally seeing what I saw all along. You're finally free. I went to bed that night with a full stomach and a fuller heart. Tomorrow might bring more threats, more legal battles, more ugliness from David and Jennifer. But tonight, I had this. I had love. Real love. And that was everything. Sunday morning, Rosa knocked on my door at 8 o'clock, carrying a covered dish and wearing her church clothes. I'm not going to Mass today, she announced, walking past me into the kitchen. I'm staying here with you. We need to talk. Rosa, you never miss Sunday Mass. God will understand. Besides, I already talked to Father Miguel, told him I had a friend in crisis who needed me more than the church did today. He said that's exactly where I should be. She set down the dish chilaquiles, still warm, and turned to face me. Margaret, what's going on? And don't tell me nothing. I've lived next door to you for 30 years. I know when something's wrong. So I told her everything. Not just the will change, but the attempted wire fraud, David and Jennifer's escalating threats, the lawyers, the competency claims, Patricia's visit, all of it. She listened without interrupting, her face growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something I didn't expect. I want to testify. What? When this goes to court, and Margaret, it will go to court, people like David and Jennifer don't back down, I want to testify. As a character witness. For you. Rosa, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. I've watched this family for 3 decades. I've seen everything. The visits that got shorter and less frequent. The calls you waited for that never came. The birthdays and holidays they missed. The excuses, the broken promises, the way they treated you like a bank instead of their mother. Her voice grew fierce. I've also seen how you made excuses for them, how you'd tell me they're just busy, or they have their own lives while your face said something else entirely. I didn't want to be that mother. The one who complains about her children. There's a difference between complaining and acknowledging the truth. You were never a complainer, Margaret. You were in denial. She grabbed my hands, but I wasn't. I saw everything. And if they try to paint you as some cruel, vindictive old woman, I'll tell the court exactly what I saw: a devoted mother who gave everything and got nothing back. It might damage your friendship with them. Rosa laughed, sharp and bitter. What friendship? Jennifer hasn't spoken to me in 4 years, not since I couldn't babysit Tyler on a moment's notice because I had my own doctor's appointment. David, he pretends I don't exist. Walks right past me in the driveway without so much as a nod. They don't see me as a person, Margaret. They see me as Mom's neighbor, just another part of the background. We ate the chilaquiles together, and Rosa told me stories I'd never heard before. Like the time David had parked his Tesla across her driveway for 2 hours because he'd only be a minute. When she'd asked him to move it, he'd rolled his eyes and said, "Can't you just walk around it?" Or the time Jennifer had borrowed Rosa's good serving platter for a dinner party and returned it 3 months later, cracked, with no apology. I figured you wouldn't mind, Jennifer had said. It looked old anyway. Why didn't you tell me these things? I asked. Because they were your children. I didn't want to make you choose between believing me or believing them. But Margaret, they showed me who they were years ago. I just waited for you to see it too. After Rosa left, she did go to evening mass after all. I found myself thinking about all the people who'd shown up in these past weeks. Rosa, Mr. Kim, Sarah Martinez, Patricia Morrison, Tyler, Ethan, even James Morrison and Richard Jansen, who'd gone above and beyond their professional duties to help me. Meanwhile, my own children had shown up only to threaten, to manipulate, to take. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Chen, this is Detective Sarah Walsh with Portland Police, Financial Crimes Unit. I'd like to speak with you about a report regarding attempted wire fraud on your account. Please call me at your earliest convenience. My hands started shaking. This was real. This was criminal investigation real. I called immediately. Detective Walsh answered on the second ring. Mrs. Chen, thank you for calling back. Your bank manager, Mr. Richard Jansen, filed a suspicious activity report regarding the attempted unauthorized transfer from your account. I've been assigned to investigate. I'd like to ask you some questions if you have time. Of course. Whatever you need. We talked for 45 minutes. She asked about my relationship with David, about who had access to my account information, about the timing of the attempted transfer. Her questions were direct but kind. Mrs. Chen, I have to ask, do you want to pursue this? If we find evidence that your son was behind this attempt, we could bring charges. But I understand this is complicated given your family situation. I thought about Robert's unsent letters, about his desperate hope that David might change, about 52 years of second chances and broken promises. Yes, I said, I want to pursue it. Not because I want my son in jail, but because he needs to face consequences. For once in his life, he needs to understand that actions have consequences. I understand. We'll proceed with the investigation. I'll be in touch. After I hung up, I sat in the gathering afternoon light, thinking about what I'd just done. I'd essentially sicked the police on my own son. What kind of mother does that? The kind who's finally had enough, I realized. The kind who understands that enabling isn't love. The kind who knows that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the natural consequences of their choices. My phone rang. Tyler. Grandma, are you sitting down? I am now. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Something's right. Really right. He sounded breathless, excited. I just got an email from Dad. He's dropping the will contest. I couldn't speak for a moment. He's what? He's dropping it. His lawyer sent a notice to James Morrison this morning. No contest, no probate fight, nothing. He's backing down. Why? What changed? I don't know for sure, but Ethan texted me right after. Apparently, Dad's business partner found out about the legal fight and threatened to pull out of their company if Dad didn't stop. Said it made him look unstable and vindictive. Bad for business. Of course. Not because David had realized he was wrong, not because he'd had some moral awakening, but because it threatened his precious business. And Jennifer? I asked. She's still threatening to contest on her own, but Mom, without David's resources, she can't afford it. Those lawyers are expensive. She'd have to pay out of pocket, and from what I understand, she's already maxed out. I should have felt triumphant, victorious. But all I felt was tired and sad. Sad that my children had forced things to this point. Sad that money and business reputation mattered more to them than family. Tyler, there's something else. The police called. They're investigating the attempted wire fraud. Silence on the other end. Then, good, he needs to face that. You're not upset? He's your uncle. He's a criminal who tried to steal from his mother. I'm not upset, Grandma. I'm proud of you for not letting him get away with it. We talked for a few more minutes. Then I called James Morrison to confirm the news. He was cautiously optimistic. David's attorney filed the notice, but Jennifer could still proceed independently. However, given the evidence we have and her limited resources, I doubt she'll follow through. I think you've won, Margaret. Won. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. That evening I sat in Robert's rose garden, bare and brown now with approaching winter, but still his garden, still ours. I thought about the journey from that first empty funeral chapel to this moment. I'd lost my husband. I'd lost my children, though I was beginning to realize I'd lost them long before I knew it. But I'd found something else. I'd found my voice, my strength, my ability to say no more. And I'd found family in unexpected places, in a neighbor who'd watched over me for 30 years, in a grandson who showed up with yellow roses, in a coffee shop stranger who understood my pain, in a bank manager who protected me, in a lawyer who fought for me. Real family, the kind that shows up, the kind that stays. I pulled my coat tighter against the November wind and looked up at the darkening sky. I did it, Robert, I whispered. I stood up for myself, for us, for what we built, and I'm still standing. Somewhere in the bare branches above me, a bird sang out a lone song in the quiet evening. I took it as a sign. The fight wasn't over completely. There would still be details to handle, loose ends to tie up, but the worst was behind me. And ahead? Ahead was life. Real life, with real people who really cared. That was more than enough. Tuesday afternoon, I was in the garden trying to prepare Robert's rose bushes for winter when a car pulled up that I didn't recognize. Not a rental this time, but a sleek silver Lexus. The woman who stepped out was elegantly dressed, cashmere coat, designer purse, the kind of polished appearance that screamed money and status. It took me a moment to place her. Meredith. David's current wife. I'd met her maybe 3 times in the 5 years they'd been married. She'd always been cool and distant, the kind of woman who looked through you rather than at you. "Mrs. Chen," she said, approaching the garden gate. "May I speak with you? Please. It's important." I set down my pruning shears. "Does David know you're here?" "No. And he can't know. That's part of why I came." She looked around nervously, as if expecting David to materialize from the bushes. "Please. I won't take much of your time." Against my better judgment, I led her inside. I didn't offer tea or coffee. I just sat across from her in the living room and waited. Meredith folded her hands in her lap, and I noticed they were trembling. Her perfect composure was cracking around the edges. "I want to apologize," she began, "for my part in all of this, for not speaking up sooner, for enabling David's behavior." I said nothing, let her fill the silence. "When David first told me about your will change, I supported him. I thought you were being unreasonable, cutting him out like that. He painted this picture of you as vindictive, as someone who'd turned against him for no reason, and I believed him because..." She stopped, swallowed hard. "Because it's easier to believe him than to see the truth." "And what's the truth, Meredith?" "That I married a man who uses people, who sees relationships as transactions, who..." Her voice broke. "I found the emails, Mrs. Chen, between David and his lawyer. I wasn't snooping. He left his laptop open, and I saw them." She pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots, email after email detailing David's strategy not just for contesting the will, but for what he planned to do with the money once he got it. Pay off his business debts, buy out his partner who was threatening to leave. Nothing about taking care of me, nothing about honoring Robert's memory. Just numbers and schemes and cold calculations. "There's more," Meredith said quietly. "He was planning to have you declared incompetent. He had a psychiatrist lined up who owed him a favor. The plan was to get you evaluated, have you declared unfit, take control of your finances, and then..." She couldn't finish. "And then what? Put you in the cheapest facility possible. Keep the difference." She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I knew he was ruthless in business, but I didn't think he'd do this to his own mother. Not until I saw it written out in black and white. I felt cold all over. Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm leaving him. I'm filing for divorce, and I wanted you to know the truth before he has a chance to destroy the evidence. I've already made copies, sent them to my lawyer, to the cloud, everywhere. If he tries to contest your will again, if he tries anything, you have proof of his intentions." She handed me a flash drive. "Everything's on here. The emails, the financial records showing how deep in debt he really is, communications with that psychiatrist, all of it. Use it however you need to protect yourself." "Why?" I asked. "Why risk this for me? We barely know each other." Meredith smiled sadly. "Because I have a mother too. She's 78, lives in Seattle. And watching David talk about you, plot against you, treat you like an obstacle to overcome it made me think about what kind of person I'd become by standing beside him. What kind of daughter I was being by enabling someone who treats his own mother this way." She stood to leave, then paused. "There's something else you should know. David lied about the business partner threatening to pull out. That's not why he dropped the will contest. Then why did he? Because Jennifer told him about the police investigation. The wire fraud attempt. David panicked. He realized that if they dug deep enough, they'd find other things, tax issues, questionable business practices, more fraudulent activity. He dropped the will contest to look cooperative, to seem like he was backing down. But he hasn't given up, Mrs. Chen. He's just regrouping." After Meredith left, I sat with the flash drive in my hand, feeling like I was holding a grenade. This was it. This was the evidence that would not only protect me, but could potentially send David to prison. My son. My firstborn. The baby I'd nursed and rocked and loved with every fiber of my being. And now I held proof of his intention to essentially imprison me, steal my money, and warehouse me away like unwanted furniture. I called James Morrison immediately. He came over within the hour, and we went through every file on the flash drive together. His face grew grimmer with each document. "Margaret, this is damning. This isn't just a will contest. This is conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, potentially even kidnapping given the plans to forcibly commit you. If you want to pursue this, I don't know what I want, I admitted. He's my son, James. Even after everything, he's still my son. I understand. But Margaret, you need to at least give this to Detective Walsh. Let the authorities decide whether to prosecute. Because if David is desperate enough to plan this, he's desperate enough to try something else. He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing it and accepting it were two different things. That evening, Tyler came over. I showed him everything, the emails, the plans, Meredith's confession. He read through it all in silence, his face growing harder with each page. "Grandma," he finally said, "you have to turn this over to the police. Not because Dad deserves to be punished, but because you deserve to be protected. What if Meredith hadn't come forward? What if she'd stayed silent? He would have done this. He would have had you locked away. But he's your uncle. He stopped being family the moment he planned to do this to you." Tyler's voice was fierce, protective. Real family protects each other. Real family shows up. Real family doesn't plot to steal from you and lock you away. I thought about Robert's letters, about his desperate plea, "Your mother is going to need you when I'm gone." David hadn't just failed that request, he'd done the opposite. He'd actively plotted to harm me. "You're right," I said finally. "Call Detective Walsh. Tell her I have additional evidence. Tell her I'm ready to cooperate fully." Tyler made the call while I sat in Robert's chair, looking at the rose garden through the window. The bushes were bare now, dormant, waiting for spring. But they would bloom again. They always did. That was the thing about roses, they looked dead in winter, but they were just resting, gathering strength for the next season. Maybe that's what I was doing too. Resting, gathering strength, preparing to bloom again in a life without David and Jennifer in it. Detective Walsh arrived 45 minutes later. I handed her the flash drive and told her everything Meredith had revealed. "This changes everything," she said. "This moves beyond attempted wire fraud into criminal conspiracy. Mrs. Chen, I need to ask, are you prepared for what this might mean? Your son could face serious charges, prison time." I looked at Tyler, who nodded encouragingly. I looked at the rose garden, at Robert's empty chair, at the house we'd built together with love and sacrifice. "I'm prepared," I said. "Not because I want revenge, but because I want justice. For myself, for my husband's memory, and for every other elderly person whose children see them as assets to liquidate rather than people to love." After Detective Walsh left with the evidence, Tyler stayed with me. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. We just sat together in the quiet house, two people who understood what family really meant. My phone buzzed. A text from Meredith. "I hope I did the right thing. Thank you for listening. For what it's worth, I think Robert would be proud of you." I typed back, "He would be proud of you too, for finding the courage to do what's right even when it's hard. Thank you for saving me," because that's what she'd done. She'd saved me from a fate I hadn't even known was being planned. She'd chosen conscience over convenience, truth over loyalty, just like I was doing now. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Robert's favorite time of day, the magic hour, he used to call it. I watched the light fade and thought about tomorrow, about the investigation that would unfold, about the choices I'd made and the consequences that would follow. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I was free. The first snow of the season fell on a Wednesday morning, 3 weeks after Meredith's confession. I woke to find the world transformed, the bare rose bushes now wearing caps of white, the driveway dusted with powder, everything hushed and clean and new. Robert had always loved the first snow. He'd wake me early, pull me to the window like an excited child. "Look, Maggie, the world's starting over." I stood at that same window now, alone but somehow not lonely, and watched the snow fall. The world was starting over, and so was I. My phone rang. Detective Walsh. "Mrs. Chen, I wanted to update you on the investigation. We've completed our preliminary findings and we're moving forward with charges. Multiple charges." My heart clenched. "What kind of charges? Wire fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, and conspiracy to commit false imprisonment." The evidence from Mrs. Meredith Chen was substantial. Combined with the bank records and your testimony, we have a strong case. When will he be arrested? The warrant will be executed this afternoon. I wanted to give you advance notice. There will likely be media attention given the nature of the crimes. I recommend you stay home. Don't answer calls from numbers you don't recognize, and consider having someone with you for support." After we hung up, I sat very still. This was really happening. My son was going to be arrested, today. I called Tyler first. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said immediately. Then I called Ethan. "I'm on my way." And finally, Rosa. "I'm already making coffee. I'll be right over." Within an hour, my kitchen was full. Tyler and Ethan at the table, Rosa at the stove making her pozole, Mr. Kim, who'd somehow heard the news arriving with fresh bread from his store. Even Sarah Martinez, my coffee shop friend, showed up with a thermos of hot chocolate. "You shouldn't be alone for this," she said simply. We waited together. Rosa's pozole simmered. Tyler and Ethan played gin rummy at the table, trying to keep things normal. Mr. Kim told stories about Korea, about his own family, about choices and consequences. Sarah sat beside me, holding my hand. At 2:15, my phone lit up with notifications, news alerts, text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Then my phone actually rang James Morrison. "It's done," he said. "David was arrested at his office. It's already all over the news. I'm sending you a statement I prepared. If any reporters contact you, direct them to me. Don't talk to anyone directly." I looked at Tyler, who was already pulling up the news on his phone. His face went pale. "What?" I asked. He turned the phone to show me. There was David in handcuffs being led out of his office building. His face was red with rage, and he was shouting something at the cameras. The headline read, "Tech entrepreneur arrested for conspiracy to defraud elderly mother." "He's blaming you," Tyler said quietly, scrolling through the article. "He's telling reporters you're vindictive, that you turned him in because he questioned your competence, that this is revenge for him trying to get you proper care." Sarah squeezed my hand. "Let him talk. The evidence will speak louder." Rosa brought over bowls of pozole, and we ate together in the warm kitchen while snow fell outside, and my son's face appeared on news channel after news channel. It felt surreal, this terrible, public unraveling of my family. My phone buzzed. "Jennifer." I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mom." Her voice was shrill, hysterical. "What did you do? What did you do? David's been arrested. They're saying he tried to steal from you, that he planned to have you committed." "These are lies, Mom. You have to tell them they're lies." "They're not lies, Jennifer." "You what? You believe this? You believe your own son is capable of." "I have evidence, emails, plans. If this moment truly hit home for you, don't forget to tap that like button. It tells me you're right here with me. Can you see a bit of yourself in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what part spoke to you most. Communications with a psychiatrist. Your brother planned to have me declared incompetent so he could steal my money and put me in the cheapest facility he could find. That's not belief, Jennifer. That's fact. Silence. Then, you turned him in. You actually called the police on your own son. He committed crimes, multiple crimes, against me, his mother. You're destroying this family. No, Jennifer. You and David destroyed this family years ago. I'm just finally acknowledging it. My voice was steady, certain. You had a choice. You both did. You chose money over love. You chose convenience over connection. You chose to see your father's death as a payday instead of a tragedy. Those were your choices. These are the consequences. I'll never forgive you for this. Her voice was ice. I can live with that. She hung up. Tyler came over and wrapped his arms around me. You okay? I don't know. Ask me tomorrow, or next year, or in 10 years. I looked around at the faces in my kitchen, Tyler, Ethan, Rosa, Mr. Kim, Sarah. But I'm not alone. Whatever happens, I'm not alone. That evening, after everyone had left except Tyler, who insisted on staying the night, I walked through the quiet house. I stopped in Robert's study and sat in his chair one more time. It's done, Robert, I whispered. David will face justice, and I'm going to be okay. Better than okay. I'm going to be free. I opened the drawer with his unsent letters and read them one last time. Then I did something I'd been afraid to do for weeks. I took them out to the fireplace, struck a match, and watched them burn. Not to destroy evidence I had copies for the lawyers, but to let go. To stop carrying the weight of Robert's heartbreak alongside my own. You tried to reach them, I said as the paper curled and blackened. You tried so hard. But some people can't be reached. Some people don't want to be saved, and that's not on you. That's not on me. That's on them. The letters burned down to ash. I swept them up and scattered them in the rose garden, among the snow-covered bushes. Maybe you'll help them bloom in the spring, I said. Back inside, Tyler had made hot chocolate the real kind, with melted chocolate and cream, the way Robert used to make it on snow days when the kids were little. Grandpa's recipe? I asked. Found it in his handwriting in the cookbook. Figured tonight was the right night. We sat together in the living room, drinking chocolate and watching the snow fall. The news was still playing on mute David's face, the office building, reporters talking into cameras, but I didn't need to hear it. I knew the story. I'd lived it. Are you scared? Tyler asked. About what comes next? No, I said, and realized I meant it. For the first time in maybe 50 years, I'm not scared. I don't know what comes next, but I know it won't be spent trying to earn love from people who don't know how to give it. It won't be spent making excuses for bad behavior. It won't be spent betraying myself to keep the peace. What will it be spent doing? I thought about the scholarship fund, about the students who would benefit from Robert's life insurance, about the dinners with Tyler and Ethan, learning family recipes and building new traditions, about coffee with Sarah, comparing notes on our parallel journeys, about Rosa next door, a friendship I'd taken for granted for 30 years but would never take for granted again. Living, I said simply, really living. Not just existing in the spaces between other people's demands, but actually living my life, on my terms, with people who genuinely care about me. Tyler raised his mug. To living. I clinked mine against his. To living. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering everything in white, covering the past, making way for the future. Tomorrow would bring more news coverage, more legal proceedings, more consequences. But tonight, I had hot chocolate and my grandson and a warm house and the knowledge that I'd done the right thing, the hard thing, the necessary thing. I thought about David in a cell somewhere, probably still raging, still blaming me, still unable to see his own culpability. And I felt not satisfaction, not vindication, just sadness. Sadness for the little boy he'd been, the man he could have become, the choices he'd made that led him to this moment. But that sadness didn't mean I'd made the wrong choice. You can grieve what someone could have been while still protecting yourself from who they actually are. Thank you for staying, I told Tyler. Where else would I be? Exactly. Where else would real family be except right here, showing up, being present, choosing love over obligation? The snow fell. The fire crackled. And somewhere in the quiet night, I felt Robert's presence like a warm hand on my shoulder. I'm free, Robert, I whispered, finally completely free, and in the dancing flames I could almost see him smile. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for a gray Monday morning in February. I debated whether to attend. James Morrison said I didn't have to, I wasn't on trial, after all. Detective Walsh would testify, the evidence would be presented, and the judge would decide whether there was enough to proceed to a grand jury. But I needed to go. I needed to look David in the eye one more time. I needed to close this chapter completely. Tyler drove me downtown to the courthouse. Ethan met us there, along with Rosa and Sarah Martinez. My support team, Tyler called them. My real family, I thought. The courthouse was all marble and echo, intimidating in its formality. We passed through security and found seats in the gallery. The courtroom was surprisingly full. Reporters in the back rows, curious onlookers, and near the front, alone, sat Jennifer. She turned when we entered. Our eyes met for a brief moment. Hers were red-rimmed, her face haggard. She'd lost weight. Looked older. But there was something else in her expression, not anger this time, something closer to defeat. She turned away without speaking. She came, I whispered to Tyler. She's supporting Dad, he murmured back. Of course she did. But I wasn't so sure. There was something in the way she sat hunched, separate from the others, that suggested she wasn't here out of loyalty. Maybe she was here for the same reason I was, to see it end. David was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit. His bail had been denied flight risk, the judge had ruled, given his access to offshore accounts and history of questionable business dealings. He'd been in county jail for 6 weeks now. He looked terrible. Thinner, gray-faced, diminished. This wasn't the confident entrepreneur in expensive suits. This was a scared man facing serious consequences. His eyes swept the gallery and landed on me. I held his gaze, didn't look away. For a long moment we just stared at each other, mother and son, across an unbridgeable chasm of betrayal and consequence. His face twisted with rage. He mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I could read his lips. "This is your fault." I didn't react, didn't flinch. Just looked at him with the calm certainty of someone who'd finally stopped taking responsibility for other people's choices. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Patricia Fernandez entered a stern-looking woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. "The People versus David Michael Chen," the clerk announced. The prosecutor stood a young woman named Amanda Rivera, who'd met with me twice to prepare. She was thorough, compassionate, and absolutely merciless when it came to the evidence. "Your Honor, the People will demonstrate that the defendant engaged in a systematic campaign to defraud his elderly mother, Margaret Chen, age 82. The evidence will show attempted wire fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse through forced psychiatric commitment, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult." She laid it out methodically. The attempted $50,000 transfer. The emails detailing David's plans. The psychiatrist who'd been contacted to provide a false evaluation. Meredith's testimony, which she'd given in a separate deposition since she was now under witness protection. David had threatened her after the arrest. David's lawyer, a tired-looking public defender named Marcus Webb, did his best. He argued that the emails were taken out of context, that David was simply exploring options for his mother's care, that the wire transfer was a misunderstanding. But then Detective Walsh took the stand. "Detective, can you describe what you found when you investigated Mr. Chen's financial situation?" Amanda Rivera asked. Mr. Chen's business was insolvent. He had maxed out 17 credit cards totaling over $300,000 in debt. His home was in foreclosure. He was facing multiple lawsuits from investors. He was, essentially, desperate. "And did your investigation reveal other attempts to access Mrs. Chen's funds?" "Yes. We found evidence of 2 previous attempts to add himself to her bank accounts, both denied by the bank. We found searches on his computer for how to get power of attorney over parent and forced psychiatric commitment Oregon law. We found a draft petition to have Mrs. Chen declared incompetent, dated 3 days before her husband's funeral." The courtroom rustled. Even the jaded reporters sat up straighter. "3 days before the funeral?" Judge Fernandez interjected. "While Mr. Robert Chen was dying?" "Yes, Your Honor. While his father was still on life support." I felt Tyler's hand grip mine. Beside me, Rosa made a small sound of distress. Jennifer turned around to look at David, her face stricken. She'd known he was desperate for money. But this? Planning to have me committed while Robert was dying? That was new even to her. David's lawyer tried to recover. "Your Honor, these searches don't prove intent." My client was researching options. He was researching how to have his mother locked away so he could steal her money, Judge Fernandez said coldly. "Continue, Detective." Detective Walsh described the evidence from Meredith, the emails, the detailed plans, the costs David had calculated for various psychiatric facilities. "The cheaper the facility, the more money he'd have access to," she explained. When it was the defense's turn, Marcus Webb called only one witness, David himself. David took the stand, and I watched my son try to lie his way out of his choices. He claimed the emails were hypothetical discussions with his lawyer, that he was concerned about his mother's mental state. That the wire transfer was authorized, I'd just forgotten giving permission because I was confused. "Mrs. Chen suffers from age-related cognitive decline," he said, looking directly at me. "She's not the woman she used to be. I was trying to protect her from making poor decisions, from being exploited by others who want her money." The irony was so thick I almost laughed. Amanda Rivera stood for cross-examination. "Mr. Chen, you stated your mother suffers from cognitive decline. Can you provide evidence of this?" "She changed her will on impulse. She cut out her own children. That's not rational behavior." "Did you attend your father's funeral?" David blinked. "I couldn't business obligations." "Yes or no, Mr. Chen, did you attend your father's funeral?" "No, but..." "Did you visit your father in the hospital while he was dying?" "I was out of town." "Yes or no?" "No." Did you post anything on social media the day of your father's funeral? David's lawyer objected, but Judge Fernandez overruled. Answer the question, Mr. Chen. I don't recall. Amanda Rivera pulled out a printout. Let me refresh your memory. Closed a major deal today. Sometimes you have to prioritize success. Posted at 2 p.m. on the day of your father's funeral. Is that your post? David's face went red. That wasn't context. And Mrs. Margaret Chen, who you claim is cognitively impaired, has she passed every competency evaluation administered by 3 separate physicians? Silence. Mr. Chen? Yes, but those doctors don't know. Has she successfully managed her own finances, attended to all her medical appointments, maintained her home, and demonstrated perfect clarity in all legal proceedings? Just because someone seems competent doesn't mean. Has she, in fact, proven more competent than you, given that you are the one facing criminal charges for fraud and conspiracy? Objection. David's lawyer jumped up. Sustained, Judge Fernandez said. But Mr. Chen, you will answer the previous questions. David had no answers. Only excuses, justifications, and increasingly desperate attempts to paint himself as the victim. When testimony concluded, Judge Fernandez didn't even recess to consider. I've heard enough, she said. Mr. Chen, I find probable cause on all charges. This case will proceed to the grand jury. Furthermore, given the severity of the planned crimes against your own mother, I'm denying any future bail requests. You will remain in custody until trial. David exploded. This is because of her. She's manipulating everyone. The bailiff moved in. David was still shouting as they let him out, his voice echoing through the marble halls. Jennifer sat frozen in her seat, staring at nothing. I stood to leave, and she turned to me. We looked at each other across the empty row of seats. I didn't know, she whispered, about the psychiatrist, about planning it while Dad was dying. I didn't know it was that bad. Would it have mattered if you had? She opened her mouth, closed it, then quietly, I don't know. And that's what scares me most. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. James Morrison had prepared me for this. I read from the statement he'd written, I'm relieved that justice is being pursued. No parent should have to face what I faced, exploitation and abuse from their own child. I hope this case serves as a reminder that elder abuse is a serious crime with serious consequences. Questions flew at me, but Tyler and Ethan formed a protective barrier, guiding me to the car. As we drove away, I looked back at the courthouse. David was inside those walls now, facing the consequences of his choices. Jennifer sat somewhere inside, maybe finally understanding the depth of her brother's betrayal. And I was driving away, free, moving forward. You did good, Grandma, Tyler said. Robert would be proud, Ethan added. I looked at these 2 young men, my real legacy, the one that mattered, and felt something settle in my chest. Peace. Finally, completely peace. Jennifer called, 3 days after the hearing. I almost didn't answer, but something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe the last remnant of maternal hope, made me pick up. Mom. Her voice was small, hollow. Can I see you? Please. I need to talk to you. In person. Jennifer, I don't think. Please. I'm not coming to argue or to ask for money or anything like that. I need to say some things, face to face. You owe me that much. The audacity of those last 4 words almost made me hang up. I owed her, after everything, but there was something in her voice, a brokenness I'd never heard before, that made me pause. Fine, tomorrow, 2 o'clock, my house. She arrived exactly on time, driving a car I didn't recognize. Not the Tesla she'd posted about. Something older, more modest. She looked different too, no makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a plain sweater. This wasn't Dr. Jennifer Chen, successful physician. This was just Jennifer, my daughter, lost and small and scared. We sat in the living room, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. I lost my job, she finally said. Well, I resigned before they could fire me. The hospital board didn't like the publicity. Conduct unbecoming, they called it. Not because of anything I did legally, but because of how it looked. The daughter who didn't attend her father's funeral, who's connected to all this scandal with David, bad optics for their reputation. I'm sorry, I said automatically, then wondered why I was apologizing. Don't be. I deserved it. She looked down at her hands. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few weeks. About Dad, about you, about who I became and how I got here. Jennifer, let me finish, please. She took a shaky breath. When I saw David in that courtroom, when I heard what he'd planned having you committed while Dad was dying, I felt sick. Physically sick. Because part of me understood it. Not agreed with it, but understood the logic, the cold calculation, and that's when I realized I'd become just like him. I wanted to argue, to say she wasn't that bad, but I stayed quiet. I didn't plan to have you committed or steal from you, but I treated you like an obligation, like a burden, like something to be managed rather than someone to be loved. Tears started streaming down her face, and I justified it. I told myself I was busy. I had important work saving lives. I couldn't just drop everything for family drama. But the truth is, I could have. I chose not to. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm losing everything, and it's making me see clearly for the first time in years. I lost my job. Tyler won't speak to me. He blocked my number after the hearing. Ethan told me I disgust him. My marriage is falling apart because Marcus says he doesn't recognize the person I've become. And Mom. Her voice broke. I lost Dad. And I didn't even say goodbye. I didn't tell him I loved him. I didn't hold his hand. I prioritized a brunch meeting over my father's funeral. She was sobbing now, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and damaged. I can't undo what I did. I can't bring Dad back. I can't take back all the missed calls and canceled visits and years of treating you like you didn't matter. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm so sorry. I sat there, watching my daughter cry, and I felt nothing. No surge of maternal forgiveness, no rush to comfort her, just a quiet, sad emptiness. What do you want from me, Jennifer? She wiped her eyes. Nothing, that's the thing. For the first time in my life, I'm not asking you for anything. I'm just telling you that you were right. About me, about David, about all of it. And I'm telling you that I'm sorry, even though I know sorry doesn't fix anything. You're right, it doesn't. She nodded, accepting this. I'm going back to Boston. Marcus and I are separating. I'm going to find a new job, somewhere far away where people don't know me as that daughter who skipped her father's funeral. I'm going to therapy. I'm going to try to figure out how I became this person I don't recognize. And Tyler? I'm going to write him a letter, not asking for forgiveness, just acknowledging what I did, how I lied to him about the funeral, how I failed him as a mother by teaching him that success matters more than people. She stood to leave. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I can forgive myself. But I wanted you to know that Dad didn't raise a monster. He raised someone who became lost. And I'm going to try to find my way back, even if it's too late. After she left, I sat in the quiet house, trying to process what had just happened. Was this real? Was Jennifer genuinely remorseful? Or was this just another manipulation, another angle? Rosa came over that evening, and I told her about Jennifer's visit. Do you believe her? Rosa asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks she's just devastated because she's facing consequences for the first time in her life. Can't it be both? Rosa said gently. People can be genuinely sorry and still be sorry because they got caught. The question is, what do you want to do about it? Nothing, I said. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to forgive her or punish her or fix her. I just want to be done with all of it. Then be done. You don't owe her forgiveness. You don't owe her another chance. You've spent your whole life owing them things. Maybe it's time to owe yourself something instead. That night I wrote Jennifer a letter. Not long, not emotional, just honest. Jennifer, I heard what you said. I believe you're sorry. I believe you're hurting. But I can't absolve you. I can't make this easier for you. This is your journey, not mine. I hope you find help. I hope therapy works. I hope you figure out who you want to be and become that person. But I can't be part of that process. I need to protect myself, protect the peace I finally found. You say your father didn't raise a monster. You're right. He raised a daughter with potential for greatness. What you became was your choice. What you become next is your choice too. I wish you well, but I wish you well from a distance. Mom. I sealed it, addressed it to her Boston apartment, and put it in the mailbox the next morning. Tyler came over for lunch. I told him about Jennifer's visit. She called me too, he admitted. Left a voicemail. I haven't listened to it yet. You don't have to. I know. But I might. Eventually. Not because I want to forgive her or have her back in my life, but because I want to understand how someone becomes that person, so I never become that person. Smart kid. Robert would be so proud. Ethan and I have been talking, Tyler continued, about the scholarship fund. We want to be more involved. Not just choosing recipients, but mentoring them, being the kind of family to them that Grandpa was to us. That's beautiful. It's what he would have wanted. Not just giving money, but giving time, attention, care, all the things that actually matter. We spent the afternoon going through applications for the first Robert Chen Memorial Scholarship, 5 students, each with a story of struggle and determination. Each one reminding me of Robert, first generation, working class, fighting for a chance. This one, I said, pointing to an application from a young woman named Maria. She works 3 jobs to support her mother and younger siblings. She's studying nursing because she wants to give back to her community. She reminds me of your grandfather. Then she's in, Tyler said, marking her file. We chose all 5 recipients together, and with each one, I felt something healing inside me. This was what inheritance should be. Not money hoarded and fought over, but opportunities created, potential unlocked, lives changed. That evening, I stood in Robert's rose garden, no longer bare, showing the first green shoots of spring emerging through the soil. In a few months, they'd bloom. Yellow roses, dozens of them, a riot of color and life. We did it, Robert, I whispered. We lost David and Jennifer, but we found Tyler and Ethan. We lost the family we thought we had, but we built a better one based on choice, not obligation, on love, not leverage. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Martinez. Coffee tomorrow? I got the court decision on my case. My kids lost. I'm officially, legally free of them. Want to celebrate with someone who understands? If this scene touched your heart, tap like to let me know it resonated with you. Do you see a glimpse of your own story in theirs? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I texted back, absolutely. I'll bring the good news too. Jennifer's moving to Boston. Dancing emoji? Sarah replied. I laughed out loud. Alone in the garden, but not lonely. Never lonely again. The roses would bloom. The scholarship fund would help students build better lives. Tyler and Ethan would carry forward Robert's legacy of real love and presence. And I would finally live the rest of my life for myself, surrounded by people I chose, people who chose me back. That was enough. That was everything. The trial date was set for June, but in May, something unexpected happened. David's lawyer contacted James Morrison with a plea deal offer. He wants to avoid trial, James explained over the phone. He'll plead guilty to attempted wire fraud and conspiracy to commit financial exploitation. In exchange, the prosecution drops the forced commitment charges. He's looking at 3 to 5 years, likely serve 18 months with good behavior. What do they need from me? Your approval. The DA won't accept the plea without your consent. You're the victim here. Your voice matters. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes, accept it. I don't want to sit through a trial. I don't want to testify about every painful detail. I just want it over. Are you sure? We could push for more. I'm sure. He'll face consequences. That's enough. The plea hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. I didn't attend. I sent James Morrison in my place with a victim impact statement that I'd written but didn't want to read aloud. Tyler read it to me before James took it to court. Your Honor, David Chen is my son. I carried him, raised him, loved him unconditionally for 52 years. I gave him everything I had to give: my time, my money, my support, my devotion. In return, he planned to have me forcibly committed to a psychiatric facility so he could steal my money. He did this while his father was dying. He showed no remorse until he was caught, and even then, his remorse was for himself, not for what he'd done to me. I don't write this statement to be vindictive. I write it so other families might see the warning signs I missed, so other elderly parents might protect themselves before it's too late. Elder abuse often comes from those we trust most, our own children. I hope David uses his time in prison to reflect on his choices, to understand that actions have consequences, to learn that real success isn't measured in dollars but in relationships, integrity, and love. I've forgiven him not because he deserves it, but because I deserve peace. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I will not be in his life going forward. That is my choice, my boundary, my right. I ask the court to impose whatever sentence serves justice, while also serving as a deterrent to others who might see their aging parents as assets to liquidate rather than people to cherish. Respectfully, Margaret Chen. It's perfect, Grandma, Tyler said when he finished reading. I hope so. I hope some good can come from all this pain. The day of the plea hearing, I spent with Rosa and Sarah Martinez. We drove to the coast, walked along Cannon Beach, watched the waves crash against Haystack Rock. It felt right to be near the ocean while David stood in a courtroom accepting responsibility for his crimes. How does it feel? Sarah asked, as we shared fish and chips at a picnic table overlooking the Pacific. Like closing a book I've been reading for too long, sad that it ended this way but relieved to finally know how it ends. My youngest called yesterday, Sarah said. First time in 2 years. Wanted to reconnect. I listened to the voicemail 3 times, trying to figure out what she really wanted. And? She's getting divorced, needs a place to stay, needs money, of course. Same pattern, different crisis. Sarah picked at her fish. I didn't call back. Is that terrible? It's self-preservation, I said. You taught them they could always come back when they needed something. Now you're teaching them that you're not available for that anymore. It's not terrible. It's necessary. Rosa nodded. My daughter hasn't called in 6 months. Used to, I would worry. Is she okay? Does she need me? Now I think she knows where I am. If she needs her mother for something real, she'll call. Otherwise, I have my own life to live. We sat in comfortable silence, 3 women who'd learned the hard way that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's enabling. It's self-destruction. My phone buzzed. James Morrison. Plea accepted. 3 years, eligible for parole after 18 months. He'll be transferred to state prison next week. It's done. I showed the text to Rosa and Sarah. How do you feel? Rosa asked. Lighter, I said. And I meant it. That evening, I hosted the first official Robert Chen Memorial Scholarship Dinner. The 5 recipients came to the house: Maria, the nursing student; Daniel, who wanted to be a teacher; Sophie, studying environmental science; James, pursuing engineering; and Amy, a single mother returning to school for her accounting degree. Tyler and Ethan helped me cook. We made Robert's pot roast, his famous scalloped potatoes, Rosa's pozole as a starter, and for dessert, an apple pie using Robert's mother's recipe. The house was full of laughter, questions, stories. These students, these strangers, filled the space that had felt so empty for so long. Maria helped me carry dishes to the kitchen. Mrs. Chen, can I ask you something? Of course, dear. Why did you do this? The scholarship, I mean. You don't know us, we're not family. I looked at this young woman, 22 years old, working 3 jobs, supporting her family, still managing to maintain a 3.8 GPA, and I saw Robert. I saw what kindness and opportunity could create. You are family, I said. Maybe not by blood, but by something more important. By choice, by showing up, by caring about things that matter. My husband believed that family isn't just who you're born to, it's who shows up when it counts. You're all showing up for yourselves, for your education, for your futures. That makes you family. After dinner, we sat in the living room, and I told them about Robert, about his immigrant parents, his struggle to get educated, his belief that everyone deserves a chance. Tyler and Ethan shared their own stories about visiting Grandpa in the garden, learning his pot roast recipe, understanding that real wealth isn't money but relationships. My grandfather used to say, "Show up," Tyler told them. That was his philosophy. Don't just send a card or make a phone call. Actually show up. Be present. That's what love looks like. That's what we'll remember, Sophie said. We'll show up, not just for ourselves, but for others. Pay it forward. That's all we ask, I said. After the students left, Tyler and Ethan stayed to help clean up. We worked in companionable silence, loading the dishwasher, wrapping leftovers, wiping down counters. "This is what Grandpa wanted," Ethan said. "Not a courtroom or a prison sentence or any of that darkness. This, people coming together, learning, growing, caring." "You're right," I said, "and he'd be so proud of both of you, for understanding that, for carrying it forward." That night, alone in the quiet house, I walked through each room: the living room where we'd hosted the dinner, the kitchen where Robert and I had cooked thousands of meals, the study where he'd written his unsent letters, the bedroom we'd shared for 54 years. In each room I felt his presence, not sad or haunting, but warm, approving. I stood in the garden, now lush with blooming roses, yellow ones just like Robert had planted. In the moonlight they glowed almost golden. "We did it, Robert," I whispered. "Not the way we planned. We lost our children, but we found our purpose. We transformed pain into opportunity. We turned betrayal into blessing." A breeze rustled through the roses, carrying their sweet scent. "I miss you every day. But I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living. Really living. And I'm surrounded by people who choose to be here, who want to be here, who love me, not for what I can give them, but for who I am." I thought about David in prison, about Jennifer in Boston trying to rebuild her life, about Tyler and Ethan inside the house cleaning up after a dinner filled with hope and possibility. "I chose differently, Robert, and I think you'd approve." The roses swayed in the breeze, and I took it as agreement. Inside, Tyler had made tea. We sat at the kitchen table, just the two of us, sipping in comfortable silence. "Grandma," he said finally, "thank you." "For what?" "For being brave enough to choose yourself. For showing me what real family looks like. For teaching me that sometimes love means saying no. For everything." I reached across and took his hand. "You gave me the courage to do it. You and Ethan. You showed me what it feels like to be loved without conditions. That's a gift I'll never be able to repay. You don't have to repay it. That's not how real love works." Exactly. That was exactly it. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No nightmares about courtrooms or confrontations. No anxiety about the next crisis. Just deep, peaceful sleep. And when I woke the next morning, the sun was streaming through the windows, the roses were blooming outside, and Tyler was already in the kitchen making coffee. "Good morning, Grandma," he called out. "I thought we could work in the garden today. Those roses need attention." I smiled. "I'd love that." Together, we walked out into the spring morning, into Robert's garden, into the life I'd chosen. And it was good. It was enough. It was everything. The roses were in full bloom again when the letter arrived. June had brought its familiar warmth to Portland, and I was in the garden with Tyler and Ethan, teaching them how to prune the bushes for maximum bloom next season. "Like this?" Tyler asked, carefully making a cut at a 45-degree angle. "Perfect. Your grandfather would be proud. He always said pruning is an act of faith. You cut away what's dying to make room for what's living." The mailman waved as he dropped off the day's delivery. Among the usual bills and catalogs was a thick envelope with Oregon State Correctional Institution in the return address. "David." I held it for a long moment before Tyler noticed. "You don't have to read it," he said gently. "You don't owe him anything." "I know, but I'm curious." I set down my pruning shears and sat on the garden bench Robert had built. Tyler and Ethan sat on either side of me as I opened the envelope. The letter was 12 pages, handwritten on lined prison paper. David's handwriting, once confident and bold, looked smaller, more careful. "Dear Mom," it began. I read it silently at first, then out loud so Tyler and Ethan could hear. "I've started this letter 100 times over the past year. Every version ended up in the trash because I couldn't find the right words. But my counselor here says there are no right words, just honest ones. So here's the truth, as honestly as I can say it. I was wrong. Not just about the wire fraud or the plans to have you committed, though. Yes, I was catastrophically wrong about those, but about everything. About how I treated you and Dad. About what I thought mattered. About who I became. Prison gives you a lot of time to think. Too much time, really. I've thought about every choice that led me here. The first time I canceled a visit because of a business meeting. The first time I borrowed money and didn't pay it back. The first time I saw you as a resource instead of my mother. I can't pinpoint exactly when I changed. It wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 small compromises, 1,000 little betrayals of the values you and Dad taught me. Success became my god, and I sacrificed everything including you at its altar. I attended a grief counseling session here. Sounds strange, I know. A prisoner grieving. But Dad's death hit me in here in ways it didn't when it happened. When he died, I was too busy, too distracted, too focused on myself to really feel it. Now I have nothing but time to feel it. To understand what I lost. Who I lost. I missed his funeral. I'll carry that for the rest of my life. Not because of what you think of me for missing it, but because I robbed myself of the chance to say goodbye, to tell him I loved him, to thank him for everything he sacrificed for me. I read your victim impact statement. The guard brought it to me after the sentencing. I've read it 50 times, maybe more. You said you hope I use this time to reflect on my choices. I am. Every day. You also said you've forgiven me, but that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I understand. I don't deserve reconciliation. I don't deserve another chance. But I wanted you to know that your forgiveness, even from a distance, gave me something to hold on to in here. It gave me hope that maybe I can become someone better than who I was. I'm not writing to ask for anything. Not money. Not visits. Not a relationship. I'm writing to say thank you. For raising me with love, even when I didn't return it. For giving me every opportunity, even when I squandered them. For being the mother I needed, even when I couldn't see it. I'm writing to say I'm sorry. For the pain I caused. For the plans I made. For missing Dad's funeral. For treating you like an asset. For every phone call I didn't return. Every visit I canceled. Every moment I chose my comfort over your needs. And I'm writing to say goodbye. Not because I want to, but because I understand it's what you need. You deserve a life free of me. Free of the stress and pain I brought into it. You deserve to be surrounded by people who actually show up. Tyler tells me you are. That makes me happy. Really happy. Tyler visits me once a month. Did you know that? He doesn't tell me much about his life. I don't deserve that intimacy. But he comes because he says Grandpa would want someone to check on me. Not forgive me. Not rescue me. Just witness that I'm still human. That's more than I deserve. I'm taking classes here, getting my MBA, ironically, learning about business ethics. The professor said something last week that stuck with me. Integrity is what you do when no one is watching. I spent my whole life doing whatever served me when no one was watching. I'm trying to learn a different way. When I get out, probably in 6 months now, with good behavior, I'm not coming back to Portland. I need to start completely fresh, somewhere where people don't know me as that guy who tried to steal from his mother, maybe Montana or Idaho. Somewhere quiet where I can rebuild who I am from scratch. I don't expect you to read this and forgive me more than you already have. I don't expect you to want contact. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see what I lost. And I see that it was all my fault. Give my love to Tyler and Ethan. Tell them they're better men than I ever was. Tell them to keep showing up. It's the only thing that matters. I love you, Mom. I know I never showed it, never said it enough. But I do. I always have. I just forgot how to. David. I folded the letter carefully and sat in silence. Tyler and Ethan waited, giving me space to process. What do you think? Ethan finally asked. I think he means it, I said slowly. I think prison broke through his defenses in a way nothing else could. I think he's genuinely remorseful. Are you going to write back? Tyler asked. I thought about it, really thought about it. A year ago, I would have said no immediately. But something had shifted in me. Not softening toward David, I still meant every boundary I'd set. But something about having fully moved on, about being genuinely happy, made me less angry. If this part touched something deep inside you, hit that like button so I know it reached you. Do you see your own reflection in this character's journey? Tell me in the comments your story might just inspire someone else. Maybe, I said. Not to rebuild a relationship, but to acknowledge his growth. To tell him I'm glad he's using this time to become better. That's what his father would want. You're more generous than I am, Tyler said. Not generous, just free. Anger keeps you tethered to people. I'm not tethered to David anymore, so I can wish him well without it costing me anything. We finished working in the garden, then went inside for lunch. As we ate sandwiches at the kitchen table, my phone rang. An unknown number, but local. Mrs. Chen, this is Patricia Morrison, David's ex-wife. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. Patricia, of course. How are you? I'm good. Really good, actually. I finished my divorce settlement and I got a good therapist. I'm rebuilding my life. She paused. I'm calling because I wanted to tell you something. David's lawyer contacted me. He's been trying to make amends from prison. He sent me a letter of apology and a check for the money he hid during our divorce. It's not the full amount, but it's substantial. That's wonderful, Patricia. It's more than wonderful. It's proof that people can change. Not always, not completely, but sometimes. And I wanted you to know because I thought it might matter to you. To know that the work he's doing in prison is real. After we hung up, I showed Tyler and Ethan the letter again. He's really trying, Ethan said, sounding surprised. Doesn't mean you have to let him back in, Tyler reminded me. I know, and I won't. But I can be glad he's becoming a better person, even if that better person doesn't have a place in my life. That evening, I sat down and wrote a short reply. Not 12 pages. Just one. David, I received your letter. I read it carefully, and I believe you're sincere. I'm glad you're using this time for growth and reflection. Your father would be proud of that, at least. I accept your apology in the spirit it was offered. I hope you continue on this path of becoming someone you can be proud of. But my boundaries remain unchanged. I wish you well in your new life, wherever it takes you. I hope you find peace and purpose. I hope you learn to show up for people in ways you never showed up for us. Take care of yourself. Mom. I sealed it, addressed it, and set it by the door to mail tomorrow. You okay? Tyler asked, finding me in the kitchen afterward. I am. I really am. And it was true. That night, I dreamed of Robert. We were in the garden, working side by side among the roses. He didn't speak, but he smiled at me with such love, such pride, such peace. When I woke, I knew what the dream meant. He approved, not of David's crimes, but of how I'd handled them. He approved of my strength, my boundaries, and now, my grace in acknowledging David's efforts to change. The roses bloomed. The scholarship students thrived. Tyler and Ethan visited weekly. Rosa brought pozole. Sarah and I had coffee every Thursday. And I lived. Fully, joyfully, freely. David's letter joined Robert's in a box in the study. Evidence of love lost and maybe, someday, partially redeemed. But either way, I was no longer defined by it. I was simply Margaret, 83 years old, surrounded by chosen family, living on my terms. And that was more than enough. It was everything. 3 months after David's letter arrived, on a crisp September morning when the roses were preparing for their final bloom of the season, everything changed again. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I saw Jennifer getting out. But she wasn't alone. A young girl, maybe 12 or 13, climbed out of the passenger seat. My heart stopped. I hadn't seen my granddaughter Emma since she was 7 years old. 6 years. 6 years of missed birthdays, missed school plays, missed everything. Jennifer knocked, then used her old key, the one I'd never thought to ask for back. They walked in before I could even process what was happening. Mom, Jennifer said, and her voice cracked immediately. Please don't send us away. I know I have no right to be here. I know I crossed every boundary you set. But I need help, and I have nowhere else to go. Emma stood behind her mother, clutching a backpack, her eyes red from crying. She looked terrified. What happened? I asked, my grandmother instincts overriding my carefully constructed walls. Marcus and I, the separation turned into a divorce. It got ugly. Really ugly. He's fighting for full custody, and he's using everything against me. The scandal with David. Missing Dad's funeral. Every mistake I ever made. Jennifer's hands were shaking. He said I'm an unfit mother. He said Emma would be better off without me. Mom? Emma's voice was so small, so scared. Is it true that you didn't go to Grandpa's funeral? The question hit me like a physical blow. This child, my granddaughter, had been told the story. Had been used as ammunition in an adult war. Yes, I said quietly. Your mother didn't attend her father's funeral. Neither did your Uncle David. Why? Emma's eyes filled with tears. Jennifer started to speak, but I held up my hand. Let me, Jennifer. I knelt down so I was eye level with Emma. Sometimes adults make choices they regret. Sometimes we get so caught up in our own lives, our own problems, that we forget what really matters. Your mother made a choice that hurt me very deeply. But Emma, that's between me and her. It doesn't change the fact that she's your mother, or that she loves you. But Dad says, I don't care what your father says. What matters is the truth, and the truth is complicated. Your mother made terrible mistakes, but people can change, people can grow. The question is whether they're willing to do the work. I stood and looked at Jennifer. Why are you really here? Because I need to prove to the judge that I have family support, that I'm not the isolated, selfish person Marcus is painting me as. Because Emma asked to meet you and I realized I'd robbed her of her grandmother the same way I robbed myself of my mother. Jennifer's voice broke. And because I'm terrified. I'm terrified of losing my daughter, and I finally understand what you must have felt. Losing your children. Watching them choose everything else over you. The knowledge hit me then, the deep educational insight that this story had been teaching me all along. Sometimes we don't learn empathy until we experience the same pain we inflicted on others. That's the harsh education life provides, not through gentle lessons but through lived consequences. You want me to testify? I asked. I want you to meet Emma. Really meet her. I want you to see that I'm trying, that I got a new job at a clinic in a low-income neighborhood, that I'm in therapy 3 times a week, that I volunteer at a homeless shelter on weekends. I'm trying to become the person Dad believed I could be, the person you deserved. Why now? Why after I set all those boundaries? Jennifer looked at Emma, then back at me. Because losing Emma would destroy me. And that made me realize that's what I did to you. I destroyed you by my absence, by my choices. And you survived anyway. You built a new life. But I can't do that if I lose Emma. She's all I have left. That's not true, I said sharply. You have yourself. You have the chance to become better. You have. I have nothing without her. Jennifer's voice rose to a scream. Don't you understand? This is my punishment. Feeling exactly what I made you feel. And it's unbearable. It's absolutely unbearable. Emma started crying. Mom, please stop yelling. The sound of my granddaughter's distress broke through everything. I moved to Emma and pulled her into a hug. She stiffened at first, then collapsed against me, sobbing. It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. Adults sometimes have very complicated feelings. But you're safe here. You're always safe with me. Over Emma's head, I looked at Jennifer. My daughter was crying too, watching her daughter find comfort in the grandmother she'd been kept from. Here's what's going to happen, I said firmly. Emma, you're going to stay with me today. Your mother and I are going to talk, really talk. Not about testifying or custody battles, but about truth, about knowledge gained through pain, about the education that comes from facing what we've done. Mom, thank you. I'm not doing this for you, Jennifer. I'm doing this for Emma. Because she deserves better than being caught in the middle of adult wars. And because I paused, the words difficult but necessary, because somewhere in my heart, I still remember the little girl you were. The one who wanted to be a doctor to help people. The one who used to leave me drawings saying best mommy ever. That girl is still in there somewhere. And maybe you can find her again. Tyler and Ethan arrived an hour later. I'd called them immediately. They were shocked to see Jennifer and Emma, but they understood what I was doing. Emma, Tyler said gently, I'm your cousin Tyler. Want to help me make Grandpa Robert's famous chocolate chip cookies? Emma looked at me for permission. I nodded, and she went with Tyler to the kitchen. That left Jennifer, Ethan, and me in the living room. The confrontation I'd been avoiding, the one I needed to have. Tell me everything, I said. No lies, no excuses, just truth. What followed was 3 hours of the most painful conversation of my life. Jennifer laid bare her marriage, her failures as a mother, her struggle with depression after losing her job, her desperate attempts to rebuild her life, while Marcus systematically destroyed her in court. He's telling the judge I neglected Emma while focusing on my career. He's saying I chose prestige over parenting. And Mom Jennifer's voice dropped to a whisper. He's right. I did. I did exactly what I did to you and Dad. I chose everything else first, and Emma got whatever was left over. That's the knowledge you needed to gain, I said quietly. That's the education life was teaching you. We can't learn compassion until we feel the same pain we caused others. Is it too late? Jennifer asked. To fix this? To fix us? I thought carefully before answering. To fix us? I don't know. That requires time, consistency, proof that change is real and lasting. But to start? No. It's never too late to start. The education we receive from our mistakes only has value if we apply it, if we let it transform us. Ethan, who'd been quiet, spoke up. Aunt Jennifer, I need to tell you something. Uncle David writes to me from prison. Did you know that? Jennifer looked shocked. No. I haven't heard from him since the sentencing. He's learning too. He's getting the same education, the same hard-won knowledge about what matters. He told me prison gave him the gift of time to understand what he destroyed. That's the gift you're getting now too, the knowledge that comes from potentially losing what you took for granted. By the time Emma returned with fresh cookies, we'd made some decisions. I wouldn't testify in Jennifer's custody battle, but I would do something better. I would be present. I would build a relationship with Emma that was separate from her mother's mistakes. I would show the court, through actions not words, that Emma had family who showed up. This doesn't mean I've forgotten, I told Jennifer as she prepared to leave. This doesn't mean you're forgiven or that boundaries don't still exist, but Emma deserves her grandmother. And maybe, if you're really doing the work, if you're really learning from this education life is giving you, maybe someday we can rebuild something, different from what we had, but real. Jennifer hugged me for the first time in years. I let her, but I didn't hug back. Not yet. That would come with time and proof. After they left, Tyler, Ethan, and I sat in the living room. That was hard to watch, Ethan said, but necessary. Life's hardest lessons usually are, I replied. The knowledge we gain from pain is the most valuable knowledge. That's the education that actually transforms us. That night, I wrote in my journal something I'd started doing after everything began. Today, I learned that mercy isn't weakness and boundaries aren't cruelty. I learned that we can hold space for people's growth without sacrificing our peace. I learned that the greatest education we receive isn't from books, but from lived experience, from pain, from consequence, from finally understanding what we took from others. Emma deserves a grandmother. Jennifer deserves a chance to become better. And I deserve to decide what role I'll play in that journey. The knowledge that I have choice, that's the most important education of all. Dear viewers of Voices of Auntie Rose, this story, Margaret's story, holds profound knowledge for all of us. It's an education in setting boundaries, in understanding that love without respect is just obligation, in learning that family is defined by actions, not blood. The knowledge Margaret gained that you can love someone and still protect yourself from them is education we all need. The lesson here isn't about cutting people off heartlessly. It's about understanding that transformation requires accountability and that we teach people how to treat us. How does this story resonate with your life? Have you experienced similar family dynamics? What knowledge have you gained from your own painful education in relationships? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights, your wisdom, your own education through life's challenges, that's what builds this community. That's how we learn from each other. And if this story touched you, if these lessons provided valuable knowledge or education that might help someone else, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to Voices of Auntie Rose. Every day, we share stories that provide real education about life, relationships, and the knowledge that comes from lived experience. Your subscription helps us continue bringing these important stories, this vital knowledge, this life education to more people who need to hear it. I wish each of you watching this good health, peaceful days, and the wisdom to navigate your own family journeys with both love and strength. May you find the knowledge you need through gentler education than Margaret received, but may you have her courage to act on that knowledge when necessary. Take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, this is Voices of Auntie Rose, reminding you that the most important education we receive is the knowledge that we deserve to be treated with love and respect always. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next video.